on my good friend Ross's um, podcast. What's the name of the podcast, my man?
Real estate golden nuggets.
So, Real Estate Golden Nuggets. So they can't. Let me just turn up the volume. They can't see you, so they're gonna have to. If they want to watch this podcast, they're gonna have to go and look for you. So, how can they? Where can they find this podcast?
Yeah. So you can search up on any platform if you just look up real estate golden nuggets, or I will be putting the video content on YouTube at my channel as well. So again, you can look me up, just Ross, ROSS Nedaee, Nedaee, and then you'll be able to find basically all the podcast episodes, including this one.
Beautiful. Well, I think we're ready to go. There's already some people here on the live, so that's excellent. I'm ready to go. This is your show, my man.
All right, yeah. So let me get the introduction going, and we get that started.
All right.
Just for my audience too, because when I'm doing an introduction, what would you like me to say? Mention a little bit about yourself. So, from my understanding, is that you are a multi-family investor.
Yeah, they call me the apartment building whisperer.
All right, the apartment building whisperer. I like that. We'll go with that.
Yeah, perfect. So we can get into it. You know what I mean? I own apartment buildings all across Canada. Not only that, I'm an educator. I help people achieve financial freedom. So you can call me a freedom fighter. And so those are kind of some of the things that you could say.
Cool. Okay, let me get this going then. Just bear with me 1 minute. Totally forgot about this light because I noticed it's really dark.
I got lights. I got cameras. I got everything over here. You know?
Yeah, like I said, you're fully equipped. I love it. You're ready to go. Rock and roll. Yeah.
All right. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man.
So you're an agent, right? You're an agent? Huh? You're an agent?
I am, yeah.
Nice.
So, I'm an agent in the Niagara region, and I've been investing in the Niagara region. So that's kind of like my playgrounds.
Nice.
Perfect. All right, Alfonso. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to another great episode of Real Estate Golden Nuggets. I have the building whisperer here, aka Alfonso Quadra. I'm very, very excited to have him on board because as a part of our growth in any investor's portfolio comes, is the multifamily sector. And I wanted to bring an expert on board today. So Alfonso, thank you so much for taking some time to join me tonight. And before we begin, if you don't mind, just give our audiences a little introduction about yourself and, kind of like how you got started.
Well, thank you, Ross. I think we've been going back and forth on messages on Instagram, and I love your content. I love that Squid Games content, and I changed it a little bit to apply to what we're seeing in the marketplace from my side, from my point of view. But it's fun. It's fun. I love watching a lot of your the things that you do on Instagram. So that's really excellent that we got to connect. And thank you for having me on your show. I think your audience will get a lot out of this podcast, this conversation we're going to have. Now, if someone wants to learn about generational wealth, so that's really what I'm about. Generational wealth, expansion, massive action. Stick around. I think this is going to be a really great conversation. So I'll start by giving you a little bit of a synopsis on who I am, in case people in your audience maybe never heard of me. And by the way, if you haven't heard of me, Ross, if you haven't heard of me, shame on me. Okay, I make it my mission to get out there and be known. So. Yeah. I'm an immigrant to Canada. Actually came as a refugee as a result of civil wars back home where I'm from, El Salvador. San Salvador is where I was born. So I was in a war in El Salvador, and then we relocated to Nicaragua, communist Nicaragua, and then another war started there. So before the age of 9, I was already in 2 civil wars and headed to Canada for refuge. So I came here as a refugee with my mom. She had $50 in her pocket, single mother, tried her best to raise me and give me some of the values that she had learned throughout her life. Um, I got into trouble. I went with the wrong crowd. I fell in. People talk about you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. Well, I was hanging around with people that were just like me. We didn't have any money, and so we did bad things, and I was influenced by that, and I didn't do well in school. So I ended up being 15 years old, high school dropout. I left home when I was 15, so now I'm completely homeless. I've slept on the streets, panhandled for change, and really went through some really dark times in my life. Some learning opportunities as well. But at 15 years old, you think you know everything, and so you think the whole world is against you.
Yeah.
And I had a life changing moment, Ross, when my daughter was born when I was 17 years old. So from 15 to 17, completely lost. No confidence in myself, no belief in myself. I thought I was going to end up dead or in jail by the time I was 20. 17, now I become this father. They put this little girl in my arms. Her name is Talia. I call her my guardian angel because if it wasn't for her, I would not be here telling you the story. Right, like she
Yeah.
came and she like transformed me and started, like, no longer did I think just about myself. I had this human being to take care of. And so
Right.
as a result, I went back to school, got a job, $5 an hour. They weren't paying much in those days.
Right.
And
Right.
I felt like, geez, like I'm going nowhere here. So I started a small business out of my locker in high school. Don't worry, Ross, it's all legal, okay? I was selling. I know where the mind goes, but I was selling clothes. You probably remember, you look very young, but you probably remember in your school the kid with the backpack with always something to sell or trade in the
Yep.
backpack. That was me. I was.
We call those the hustlers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so what I realized is the power of profits. And I would go to Toronto. I'm from Ottawa, but I would go to Toronto and on Yonge Street from the street vendors, I would buy, a pair of jeans for $20, and I would sell them at school for 60, making a
Right.
$40 profit in a 10-minute transaction. And to me, that was just logical. I said, that's going to be my path. And so when I graduated high school at 19, I had a vision, a dream, an idea of opening my very own physical location. And so, everybody has dreams, everybody has
Right.
ideas, and there's going to be the naysayers, and pretty much everybody in my life told me you're crazy, this is not going to work. And it was a hip hop store in just the beginnings of the golden hip hop era. And this is like 19, think about this, 96, 97. And they said, well, Ottawa has, Ottawa doesn't have hip hop stores. No one's going to, it's not going to survive this business. And by the way, hip hop is just a fad. That's what they were telling me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I opened the business anyways. That was the first time I ever raised capital for a venture. I didn't raise much. It was about $2,700. Maybe amongst 5 or 6 friends. People pitched in 200, 300, but those $2,700, which doesn't seem like much, I turned it into a company that was grossing in the millions. By the time I was 21, I had locations all across Canada.
Wow.
And I learned so much about business and how to operate like big business, right? And how to scale. Like I scaled quickly. And so what happened to me, and I think what happens to a lot of people is, someone can win the lottery, right? Anybody can win the lottery, and all of a sudden they think they made it. But if the mindset doesn't change, they're going to end up where they were, or even worse, within 3 to 4 years. And you can, that, I mean, that's a statistic. Like, you can go look that up.
Absolutely agree with that. Yeah.
And so 21 years old, at the top of the world, okay, for a 21-year-old, poor all my life, never had anything, and now I have means, but I have no financial literacy, right? I don't know what to do with money. I don't know how to manage money. And so what's a 21-year-old to do? Spend it. Spend the money.
Of course.
That's what I did. And I almost lost everything. So by the time I'm 24, now I'm almost at the brink of bankruptcy. Okay, because shortly after 9/11, there was a correction in the marketplace where people's spending habits changed.
Right.
And then the introduction of the internet and how people could buy their clothing on the internet, it almost took me out, Ross. It almost took me out. And I realized that I needed to change. I mean, yes, I won the lottery. I mean, I fell into the right business at the right time, in the right era, with the right mindset, with the right people, with the right friends, everything was right. But the rest was wrong. I was mismanaging my money. Mm-hmm. Now, looking back in hindsight, I think I needed that, right? If you talk to any potential investor, especially for your audience, how do they, when you're talking to an investor and you're talking to someone that is raising capital, ask this question. How much money, because everybody talks about how much money they've made, but how much money have you lost? Because I think everybody needs to have those growing pains. I think everybody needs to know what it's like to be $1 million in debt at the brink of bankruptcy, but not go bankrupt and rebuild, and be better off than they ever were before. And those are lessons that I don't think people can learn in a textbook.
No, definitely not. No.
And so that was the lessons that I learned at 21, 22, 23, 24. Right. I picked up this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because I felt that, I needed to learn, right? I needed to learn.
Yep.
And I picked up Think and Grow Rich and started to expand my mindset. And I never read a book, Ross, my whole entire life up until that point. 24 years old, picked up this book. I've read hundreds of books after that. It was like, I'm addicted. I was the kind of kid in school that would read the back and get 50% on the test. Why would we need any more effort, And so I'm reading all these books, and then my mind starts to get exposed to this world of personal development, wealth, real wealth, and what wealthy people do. And what I discovered was that most wealthy people have multiple streams of income. And that hit me like a ton of bricks because I was dependent on one stream. And so when all of the market is doing this, I'm suffering through when the economy is good, I was great. But when the economy was bad, my lifestyle suffered, my family suffered, and I didn't want to put my family through that ever again. And so I said, I need more streams of income. And then continuing to read about wealthy people and studying wealthy people, what I discovered was that most wealthy people hold their wealth in real estate, specifically multifamily, specifically apartment buildings and commercial real estate. That's what I discovered right from the beginning. No rich person is bragging about a duplex or a triplex they own, right? You need the economy of scale. You need to spread risk amongst many units. And so my first investment, we're going plus 20 years ago, okay? It's 22 years ago, was a triplex, okay? And then I leveled up to a 7-unit. And then I realized, whoa, this 7-unit is just as much work as this triplex. In fact, this triplex is probably more work. And so then I said, okay, I'll do a 10-unit. and a 12 unit and a 13 unit and a 15 unit, 20 units. The first time I did a 36 unit, that was like, oh my God, this is like how I couldn't even sleep at night. Then 40 units, 50 units, 60 units, and now what I'm looking for is 100 to 200 units at a time, right?
Wow.
And since that time at 24, when I'm trying to get my life together, I rebuilt the company. I sold the company, and then I just went into real estate full time, right?
Mm.
And since then, I've accumulated millions and millions of dollars of real estate all across Canada, and you know, I'm here to tell that story to you, Ross. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, no, thank you. There was a lot of great content there, and you know what? I feel like a lot of listening in can definitely resonate, especially being also coming from an immigrant family and so forth. Starting
Where are
from
you
scratch.
from?
My background, I'm actually from Afghanistan,
Mm.
so I too can resonate. Like I
Yeah,
said, in
but were
terms
you
of
born
age
here
where
or were you born in Afghanistan?
I was born in Afghanistan. Yeah, so
Cool,
I
cool.
was 10 years old when I came to Canada.
Same
So
age,
pretty much
but
grew up here.
we're so very very similar to me.
Correct.
It's
Correct.
it's a weird transition learning English. Do you remember learning
Yeah.
English?
No, basically, like I learned it here.
Yeah, no,
It's
but do
like,
you remember?
do I remember what?
Do you remember learning English?
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
actually
do.
remember the day
Yeah.
I could understand everything. I,
Right,
I, I
right.
actually remember being in a room and everybody's laughing and I don't know what they're laughing at, right? I
Yeah,
can't understand what's on television. I can't understand what people are saying. And then
correct.
and then also I also remember like that moment where boom, I woke up and I could understand everything.
Yeah, no, it's a big shift, absolutely, and it's a big change, and that, that's what it is. It comes down to learning and growing, like we're talking about. So, I do want to unpack a couple of things because I know you mentioned quite, you had a successful journey so far, but let's focus a little bit more on the real estate side. So you touched on some great points there. So you did say, you discovered early that the best way to accumulate wealth in real estate is to go on the multis, right? So
Yeah.
I would say majority of my podcast listeners are either new investors or investors that have, say 30, 40 units, but consisting of single families or multis, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, so forth. Many people kind of are shying away or they're afraid of the bigger multi, right? So what I would like to discover is two things. First is the financing portion, right? Because you're dealing with a bigger number, right?
Yeah.
A bigger purchase, bigger down payment, so forth. And then secondly, most importantly, I would say is the mindset shift, right? So can you walk us through what it took you to kind of realize earlier or get over that hump and then get into the bigger multis?
Yeah, I
Rather than
mean
continuing with
it's
the
intimidating.
single.
And I understand why people don't do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be intimidating. It's like everything is bigger. Everything is like larger boiler. When you look at a boiler that services 60 units, you're intimidated. Now they make them smaller, but when I got into the game, these boilers were the size of this room, right? So it's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to walk in the unknown, right? This is what I would say to someone. Do you remember when gas, maybe not you, because you look like a young man, but do you remember when gas was 40 cents? And you don't. I know you don't. But
I think 70 cents was when I saw it.
yeah, so one day it jumped up to 70 cents and everybody just freaked out. It was like
Right.
unreal how gas could be 70 cents. And then someone said, one day gas could potentially go up to even $1. And everybody was like, no way. Like that would be impossible. Like if it goes up to the dollar, I'm not even driving anymore. That was the mindset of what people said.
Yeah.
And then 70 went to from 40 it went to 70, 70 went to 75 and 80, and then that day came that gas hit $1 and everybody just freaked out, right?
Yeah.
And they kept going. It kept going. I think this year I saw the gas at like 140, 150, 160, and if you're getting premium, you're paying way more than $2.
Correct. Yeah.
Do you remember COVID-19 when the gas went just dropped to the 80s? Do you remember that?
Correct.
Like
Yep.
last
Yep.
year, April, right?
That's right.
Everybody's like, "Oh my God, it's like so cheap," right? And so what happens, Ross? Your mind gets accustomed to certain numbers and you get anchored, right? And so when you're so used to paying $1.50, $1.50, $1.50, if it goes back to $1, it feels like it's cheap because your mind got so used to 150, 150, 150. That's exactly how it is with real estate. Everybody's looking at triplexes because, first of all, most people tend to operate based on what they think they can achieve, right? And the triplex seems achievable, right? And what happens is they become anchored to those prices. So we're looking at, a triplex between, let's say, depending on the market, on the cheap end of 400K to, let's say, 900,000. Okay, depending on the market. And so people become anchored to those numbers. And so to expand your mindset is very simple. You just have to be out there looking at $10 million deals, right? If every day you wake up and you look at $10 million deals,
right,
you become anchored to $10 million deals, right? And now when you go back and you look at $1 million deal, it's going to seem small, right?
Yeah.
And the way it works, because everything is about expansion, and what I suggest for your audience is to always live in the outside the comfort zone. So expand what you know, expand everything that when you feel you're comfortable, you're not growing. So you need to expand that. Add a zero, add two zeros. And so what happens is if you had an elastic band and you were to expand that elastic band and then you let it go, well, it'll shrink, but it will be bigger than when it started. And
I love
so
that analogy. Yeah.
and so what happens is you just have to get used to those numbers. And if I could go back to the beginning. Now, there is education that you need. There is context. So you need experience. But if I could go back to the beginning and give myself some advice, I would say, Alfonso, even though like people in my first year of real estate, I bought 10 properties, right? I bought triplexes. I was, about 7 units. I did all these things. To someone that might seem impressive, but looking back on it myself, when I look at the elastic band and where I am today, I would say to myself, you're thinking too small. Now, it's important to have those stepping stones, right? You need to start somewhere.
Correct.
But make sure that you're always expanding, right?
Yeah.
So if you start with the 4, you know what? The next one should be a 6, or should be an 8, or should be a 10. You get your 10, okay, level up. And so I spend a lot of time playing small, right? Now that's the criticism I give myself, right?
Right.
When I know that when I say that to some people, like, that's crazy. You own hundreds of doors all across Canada. Well, you know what? I could own thousands. Right?
There's never enough.
Yeah. So I have to say that I would have, if I could go back, I would have leveled up faster.
Right.
Without skipping the learning, right? And people should get the education.
Yep.
Absolutely, they need to know what they're doing, but don't think small. Don't stay in this box. Now, going back to your second question was the financing, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What I discovered the second I started to level up is that the financing is a lot easier, right? No longer are they looking at my personal situation.
Right.
They are looking at the asset. They're lending money based on the performance of the asset. to me, that's just more logical because, and everybody, a lot of your investors may have already gone to the bank, and the banker says, "Nope, two more. That's it." Or only three for you, and then people stay in that box, right? They don't even, they're like, no, that's it. That's all. The banker said three, and that's all I could do, right?
Yeah.
And because the bank is operating on a debt to income ratio, right? Which once you have three mortgages and you only make $100,000 or $150,000 a year, well then you're done, right? And so that's a clear indicator that you're buying the wrong properties, because if the bank puts the pressure on you to pay, that's the wrong property.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're absolutely correct. When it comes to commercial, right? It's all based on the asset, not necessarily on your income. So I totally agree with that. But then the other question comes back to is the down payment, right? Also with the bigger multis, right? The loan to value is quite different than a multi, right? You're looking at 65% loan to value versus an 80%, let's just say, right? So how does one come up with that sort of down payment or that sort of renovation cost? And that's basically my question, because I think that's what it slows a lot of people down or prevents them into going into the bigger space.
Well, the thing about when you deal in multifamily, right? You're dealing with businesses. You're dealing with people that are analyzing, and the underwriters is very different than the underwriters that are underwriting residential, right?
That's right.
So there's many ways. I mean, you could borrow the down payment, right? You could get other sources of funding, right? Now that would limit the amount of funding you could get for the first mortgage,
right?
But at some point, if the numbers make sense, so this is why we go back to education. If the numbers make sense, it might make more sense for you to go to a lending institution versus going to an A lender. Right. But I'm going to pay more interest. Well, at the end of the day, who cares, right? I'm not focused on the cost. I'm focused on the return on investment. And so that would drive my investing decisions. You could get together with other people and do a joint venture. You're better off, getting together with a group of 4 or 5 other people, pooling your money together than each one of you individually buying a duplex. You see, when you buy bigger, you tap into economy of scale, meaning more cash flow. Your $200,000 is going to go further in an apartment building, even if you come together with your 5 buddies, and everybody puts in 200,000, and now you pool your money together to buy something that's significant, that's going to give you a higher return than buying that duplex on your own and just waiting. Like you're hoping. I tell people you're smoking the hopium. You know what I mean? Like you're hoping to make money. You're hoping that this goes up in value, right? And so this can be a game changer for a lot of people. The other thing is you could become an expert. You could dedicate your time and efforts to learning how to identify deals, how to find the opportunities, negotiate the opportunities, underwrite the opportunities, and put a package together, and now go out and raise capital. Right? With none of your own money. There's so many ways which is easier. It's easier to raise capital for a $5 to $10 million asset, because the people that are investing into this bigger entity are more sophisticated. Most people are not going to get excited about investing into a duplex or a triplex, but if you bring a 20-unit building to the table, you could get your wealthy uncle excited, and it could be bragging rights for that wealthy uncle, that he could invest into your project, and now you take back some equity for being the working partner.
Yeah, Yeah, no, absolutely love it. And that's basically what I was trying to touch upon. It's just that, a lot of things you can do is on the creative side, right? Creative financing, and commercial properties do allow for that, right? Vendor take back is a common one that I'm seeing a lot of investors, lean on. And the good news is when you do go to these B lenders or these credit unions, often not they do accept it.
Yeah.
And to a certain point, up to a very high percentage, I've seen 35% even as a acceptable vendor take back, whereas you won't get that with any sort of duplex or triplex, right?
I've bought apartment buildings at 100% vendor take back.
Wow. Wow. There you go. There you go. So it allows for the creativity, right? It does allow you to expand. And then, like you said, I'd rather have one multi-building that's 100 units versus 50 duplexes, and they're scattered all over the country, right?
Yeah.
And again, management is easier, maintenance is easier, and more importantly, like you were saying, the equity side, right? That's what I wanted to get into, because a lot of discussion or debate goes around cash flow versus equity, right? So would you agree, or would you say that would you argue that the multifamily side does give you better cash flow as well as better equity compared to the other smaller buildings?
So what you mean? You're talking about appreciation.
Appreciation is what I'm referring to, correct?
Yeah. So appreciation is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Right. I need to know that my deal is going to cash flow. Right. The only time people lose money in real estate is when they bank on the appreciation, right?
Yeah.
Because now they have to unload the property because it doesn't cash flow. It's just bleeding them to death. And so cash flow is an indicator to me that this property can weather any storm. That's what the cash flow does. Now, historically, markets go up and down, up and down. But as a buy and hold person, buy and hold for life, it doesn't impact me if the market goes down. I still know I'm going to collect my money, right? I'm going to collect my rents, and the deal is set up with proper contingencies of vacancies, repairs and maintenance, property management. I'm buying this business, right? And I'm buying the business based on the validity of the numbers. I'm not focused on the appreciation. Now, location can have an impact on appreciation. For example, if you bought something on Yonge Street, downtown GTA, that's gonna, that there's gonna be the likelihood of that appreciating versus a Woodstock. That for sure you're gonna get your appreciation in the GTA. It's a major city. It will always be a major city, right?
Right.
But how long are you gonna bleed for, waiting for this? So I think the healthy thing to do is to find a happy medium where there's a significant cash flow and you will realize appreciation. So what I focus on is secondary and tertiary markets that have access to highways and access to major markets that have airports. So if you look at, for example, if we look at the 401.
Yeah.
If I buy in Brockville, in 2 hours I can be in Toronto. In 2 hours I can be in an hour I can be in Ottawa. I can drive all the way to Montreal. I have access to major markets, right? Oshawa, for example, or Hamilton. Do you know that 20 years ago we were buying properties in Hamilton off the bus? They were boarded up buildings. People said, "What are you, crazy? Why would you buy in Hamilton?" Well, look at how close Hamilton is to the GTA.
Yeah.
Right? And so you just have to look at a map. You look at a map and you can tell where things are happening, right? You can tell where things are going. You just follow the 400 all the way up past Barrie. You can see, you just need access. Now, there is markets that don't have access. That means without access, you're not going to see appreciation. You're not going to see, there's not going to be much potential. And usually those markets are one-horse towns, really, meaning there's only really one employer in those markets, right? if you look at secondary markets, well, someone can live in Oshawa and work in downtown Toronto.
Yep.
Now with the GO train going from London, right?
Yeah.
It's servicing London. Someone could live in London and come to work in Toronto, or live in Toronto and go to school in London.
Yeah.
So access impacts real estate, and that's what I look for.
Absolutely.
I need cash flow.
Yeah.
That's a non-negotiable. But then the next side is I look for markets that have potential to grow.
So besides the, like you said, the infrastructure, which is a key component, are you also looking at potentially population growth, or what other factors do you look at
Yeah,
when you're assessing these?
the population growth will be
Mm-hmm.
automatic based on access.
Gotcha,
So
gotcha.
if and I was saying this 20 years ago, right?
Right, right.
When we're talking about Hamilton, Niagara, right?
Yep.
Niagara, St. Catharines. People are like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" You know, and for the most part, they couldn't see. But if you look at around Toronto, you're stuck. You can't go anywhere. You can't. I mean, there's nothing else left. You know,
Yeah.
and so you have to deal with what you have. And so this is that's why these markets are they're growing. St. Catharines, we have Windsor, Sarnia, the Hamiltons. These places are growing because they're attached to highways.
Yeah.
If they weren't, they
Mm-hmm.
you would if you have to be like if how fast can you go from St. Catharines to Toronto?
Probably about an hour.
Someone could
Yeah.
do that trip. Someone could live in St. Catharines, work in GTA.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a ton of commuters, and even from Hamilton, a lot of folks, do commute.
Yeah.
They do go to
Yeah.
Mississauga and so forth. Obviously, depending on
Yeah.
traffic, but
So
this is that's
that's
very
what
doable. Yeah.
population growth is impacted by access to major markets.
Absolutely agree.
Immigration, right? So
Yeah.
immigration, I think in 2022, the Canadian government is preparing to welcome 1 million people.
Yes.
1 million people.
Yeah.
They're gonna go to the G. Everybody has this like illusion, like everybody can live in the GTA, but it's not gonna
Yep.
happen, right? Or
No, no.
Vancouver or Montreal, and then what's gonna happen is people will just continue to drive until you can afford to live.
Absolutely, and then that's happened. I've seen that firsthand, right? Even for me, like when we first came to Canada, we lived in Mississauga. Like I
Yeah.
went to school there, right? And then I noticed even like it's my circle of friends and family, right? Everybody started moving further and further away. They started going to Brampton, to Milton. Now they folks are in like the Market and Ajax and Pickering and Oshawa, and it just everybody's going further and further and further away. And one of the main reasons for this, of course, is the cost, right?
Yeah.
Folks can't afford to buy, multi-million-dollar properties in Mississauga anymore, right? It doesn't make sense for
Yeah.
them, right? They'd rather just move somewhere further, cash out that money, use it for another investment property or whatever it may be. But to your point, the main reason they're capable, allowed to do that is the highway access, right?
Yeah.
They can move around, and especially now with working from home, oh man, it's
Well, that's a
opened up
game
doors to
changer.
so many
It's
things.
a game changer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You don't necessarily need to be in the office. And then I think even once things go back to normal, I think you're going to see a hybrid model. It's not going to be 5 days a week. So people will be okay, to your point, to drive, an hour away from their home in, say, St. Catharines to go down to downtown Toronto or take a GO train or
Yeah.
whatever it may
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. I think also
Yeah.
airports are important.
Mm-hmm.
I look at how fast can someone be in an airport.
Right. So unpack that a little bit.
Yeah,
I
because
like
like a
that
lot of
idea. So,
people there's quality of life, right?
yeah.
And so I've noticed that it doesn't matter how far you are, as long
Mm-hmm.
as you're close to an airport, or
Right.
you can be somewhere else fast, right? I make decisions like that myself, right? Like
Right.
I need to be close to an airport. because I need to. If I want to go on vacation, I don't want to drive 2 hours, in the
Yeah.
snow to go on a vacation. Like then you can come back from the vacation. You gotta take the snow off your car, and then you gotta drive another 2 hours. So, um,
Yes. Yeah.
being close to the proximity to an airport is important. At least an hour, or like I think 2 hours you're okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But anything
Yeah.
else like further than that,
Hmm.
you're just limiting the exposure you have to tenants.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about I know you mentioned the invest pretty much all over Canada, right? So what are some places that you've really honed up on, and you've have ton of properties, and you see growth potential in them, right? Like besides Ontario, I know Ontario is the big ticket, right? In Canada, are there any other
Yeah, so
provinces that you're seeing?
I'm investing in Alberta, Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, Quebec,
Hmm.
and Ontario. Those are, and we're looking at some things in BC.
Right,
Not in Vancouver, but just on the outskirts of BC, like secondary markets, tertiary markets,
right,
in BC. You know, it. I love spreading that risk around. Uh, I'm not impacted by any particular market because what's happening in Ontario, it's not what's happening in Saskatchewan or New Brunswick. So I've always had that discipline. I've had some things in New Brunswick that I was like, people like in 2019, people were like, "Well, I don't know, like it's kind of far." And then like everybody and their grandmother now has gone to New Brunswick, and and I was able to actually unload some properties really quickly, in those markets. And so I love being in different markets, right? So when we were in this Ontario lockdown that we didn't even know was going to happen, you know what I mean? I
right,
don't. We didn't know if they were ever going to let us out. Saskatchewan and Alberta were free, no masks, and so everything was back to normal in those areas.
right,
Now Ontario is kind of opening things up, and now Alberta and Saskatchewan, they're like, oh, we opened up too early, and then they're closing things down. So
right.
like you're not subject to one. Like, I mean, it's like the old saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And what I love
So how are
when you're
you?
buying apartment buildings,
Yeah.
it's almost like buying little cities. It's essentially you're
Yep.
buying a little city, and
Correct.
and you
Correct.
can you can have a sheriff, right? For every town, you
Right.
can have a sheriff and a mayor, right? And so I can say, okay, you're the mayor of this city, right? I'm the president of the country, but you're the mayor of this city, and then like that person can have their own little kingdom, and it works. I mean, it doesn't work with duplexes. There's no
Yeah.
money, right? But if you're buying a 20-unit building, there's enough money to have a caretaker, property management company, and your properties are better taken care of. It's easier to buy from far when it's bigger.
Hmm. Yeah, and that was my other question. I mean, how are you? I guess managing the remote aspect. I believe you already covered that, where you've already hiring these guys like property managers and everything, because you have the economy, the scale, and the
Yeah.
cash flow. And then most importantly, as you do go to these bigger multi deals, right? There's not many on MLS, for example, right? So then, how are you sourcing those deals, or how are you finding these deals?
Yeah, well, I mean, we started the show with, if you don't know me, I'm not doing my job, right? So I make it my job to get known, be known,
Yeah,
right? I want to
right,
be the person that if you got to unload your portfolio, you call Alfonso, right?
right,
Like Ghostbusters, right? Who are you gonna call? Alfonso,
right.
and I want to be that person that can help, be in a position to help someone. There is a lot of inventory off market.
Hmm.
I always tell people, your seller doesn't know that they're a seller yet, right? So
Hmm.
there's a lot of opportunity to knock on doors, knock on those portfolios that have been sitting there dormant for a very long time, and it just happened that you came through. Um, and you happen to be at the right time in the right place when the guy was thinking about maybe going into the sunset, sailing into the sunset, and you're just right there. Hey, I'm ready to buy your property, right?
Right.
Um, there is a lack of inventory right now, but there's more now than there was 3 months ago,
Yes,
and
market's changed.
there'll be more tomorrow than there was yesterday, and so slowly you'll start to see more product on the market.
Yeah. Are you also not seeing a huge shift in the price that people are commanding now, even for multis? Because the common thing that I'm hearing for a lot of people is that Canada is becoming completely out of reach when it comes to prices. Now they're looking at states, for instance, right? They're looking outside the country. Are you seeing similar things, or do you still
Yeah,
feel confident in Canada?
I mean, if you want to compare apples to apples, okay, so if we can compare our major markets compared to Los Angeles,
Right.
Chicago, New York, we're still way below. Our assets are way undervalued, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
compare it to, if you're going to compare, I mean, you have to say that Toronto would be comparable to any Los Angeles or New York or any of these. I mean, it's a major city. It's a world international city.
Correct.
And if you compare the real estate, Toronto and New York City, there's no comparison, right?
No,
And so or Paris or London, right? And
that's right.
so this is why people are still coming here, because it's still like, we are anchored to these numbers, right?
Absolutely.
But someone that's anchored to London prices or Singapore, or Hong Kong, they come and they're like, this is dirt cheap. I'll pay cash. I'll overpay. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so our real estate is still undervalued. Now, if you go to secondary markets and tertiary markets, this is
Yeah.
where you start to see prices start to come down, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're buying right, there's cash flow. You know how to do your numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, that's a healthy place as long as you follow what we're talking about here, like access, and get educated on how to buy. A lot of the times, if someone has a deal for sale, your job is to solve a problem, right? So you need to be solution oriented, and that seller wants that money. How can you make it happen? Well, the
Right.
cash flow doesn't work. Okay, can we create more cash flow? Can we add storage facilities? Can we add parking? Can we charge for laundry? So you gotta think outside the box, and you have to become a win-win type of person, especially in this market, because why would he, like someone says, you know, so and so is selling a property, but he wants way too much for it. What an asshole! You know what I mean? That's what people say. They get so upset. But
Yeah.
if you were in their shoes, you would do the same.
Of course.
You want to
You
get
want
the mo-
maximum dollars.
yeah, you want to get the most possible. And so, at the end of the day, real estate was expensive last year. Real estate was too expensive in 2019. Real estate was too expensive in 2018. Real estate was too expensive in 2015. Real estate was too expensive in 2011. Like, how long are you going to wait?
Yeah, yeah. No, that's a valid point. And I've had this conversation with many of, investor friends of mine and even folks that have been on the sidelines for a really long time, because at every month that they're waiting, they're losing tens of thousands of dollars just on
Yeah.
appreciation. And I know right now the market's kind of like on steroids, which is, no one expected that. However, it comes to a point where we're discussing this with someone earlier today. It was like, to your point, we're just anchored to lower prices, and compared to the major big cities, we're still so cheap, but we're just not used to that kind of price
Yeah.
hike. And it happened all of a sudden. I feel like
Yeah.
it just accelerated all at once.
Yeah.
Versus steadily climbing up, right? And we're still cheap and undervalued compared to what else is out there, right? So for the folks that are still waiting on the sidelines, they're just they're literally digging themselves another hole. I think, and I know that sounds harsh, but that's the reality of it. Like,
And then you have the other element. Yes, if prices come down, okay,
right,
um, it's great. Now all the people on the sidelines can get excited, right?
yeah,
But what about interest rates?
that's gonna go up.
We're living through a historical time, which is primarily the reason why real estate is seems to be going up in value.
Yeah,
um, I have my different views on that, right? I mean, I think buying power, money is going down in value, which makes you feel like real estate is going up, but it's really the buying power going down. That's another conversation.
right,
But you know, at the end of the day, the historically, this has never happened. We've never had interest rates so low for so long. I mean, we're buying like major assets at like 1.5-2% interest rate. This is
yeah,
free money. And so your grandkids, your great grandkids are going to talk about this time. They're going to talk about it. You're going to be in your rocking chair and they're going to ask you, Ross or Grandpa Ross, is it true? Is it true that you were alive during a time where they were basically giving away money for free? Almost. And you're going to say, yeah, I was alive during that time. And
yeah,
they're going to
at
say
0.99%.
and then they're going to say, what did you do about it?
Yeah,
And so the people that are waiting on the sidelines are going to say, I was waiting for the prices to come down.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just, yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, it's a completely different, conversation to have. It's just, the purchasing power. I totally agree with you. It's just like we're talking about inflation. Just today, in an article came out that's saying that inflation right now is at 4.4%.
I
So
call
somebody's
bullshit on
giving
that. I
you,
call bullshit.
yeah,
I think it's more than that.
yeah. Let's just say even at 4.4.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's conservative, right? I think it's around 7, to be honest. I think 4.4 is very, very low. But even at 4.4, if the bank is willing to give it to you at 3%, that's essentially free money. If you just look at the logic,
It's free money.
yeah,
It's free
why not
money.
use it?
Yeah.
Why not use it to build generational
Yeah,
wealth?
yeah, exactly.
That's
As
how
long
you-
as you do it responsibly, right? As long
Right.
as you do your numbers, you do your due diligence, and there has to be an investment to learning what to do, right?
Yeah,
And once you do that, sky's the limit.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, Alfonso. Yeah, so I know earlier that I mentioned that you do have a coaching program. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
seeing some of my circles, actually, friends, kind of join your group. So
Yeah.
I would love to know a little bit more about that, and I'm sure a lot of people would
So
like to know more about that as well.
so I do mentoring, and if anything I said today, or and I also would encourage someone to go on my YouTube channel, subscribe. It's free. If anything I have to say resonates with you, just reach out, right? We can have a discussion of how our paths align. Um, you know, I have students all across Canada. I don't really push it on people. We're looking for high level achievers. So whoever's listening to this, if they feel that that's them, reach out.
Perfect. Awesome. All right, Alfonso. Yeah, I'm so glad that we were able to connect and go
Hey,
over
this is awesome.
I think, yeah, it's very valuable. I think it's an eye opener for folks, and I think going back to what we said, at the end of the day, it all comes down to mindset. I think it's just opening your eyes. It's just put another zero. What's another zero, right? That's basically how you got to think about it. Yeah, it feels uncomfortable, but comfort is no growth.
Yeah.
Discomfort is growth. That's the reality of it, right?
To be comfortable is like the kiss of death.
I love that. I love that. All right. And then basically towards the end of my podcast, I generally like to ask my guests a few questions just to get to know them, know them a little bit better. So if you had to recommend some sort of books, whether it's mindset or real estate related, what would that be?
Well, the ones that I'm sure everybody says would be like Think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad Poor Dad,
Right.
and the Babylons must the Babylons of what is it? What's it called? Mm, I'm forgetting the title. I would recommend something more along the lines of productivity, right? If you can, I mean, thinking big and having the mindset, it's a must. But after you expand, you have to you have to uh, you have to build systems and build systems and motivate people.
Right.
You have to become a leader. Okay, so what I would say, anything from John Maxwell in terms of leadership, and one book recently that I think it's an excellent productivity book is Hyper Focus. So those two books, after you've done the Think and Grow Rich and the Rich Dad Poor Dad, if you haven't already done that, I think the next
Right.
step for you should be more along the lines of operating a business. So you need leadership, you need to be productive, and those things are going to serve you well.
Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely check those out. I haven't read those two, so I'm always curious. I always like to get a list, and yeah, I've read Rich Dad Poor Dad is kind of like the Bible. I would
Yeah,
say it's
yeah,
an eye
yeah,
opener
yeah.
for many.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you should read it multiple times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure every guest says that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then Alfonso, if you could travel anywhere in the world today, where would it be and why?
Well, I've traveled to over 40 countries in my life, many different cultures. I my quickly what comes to mind is Turkey, Russia, Russia, India. I
Have
haven't
you been to
been.
those, or are you gonna go? Are you
I
trying to go there?
Well, yeah, I want to go there. I haven't been. Right, those are
Oh, okay.
countries that I haven't been. I've traveled over 40 countries, and I
Wow.
haven't been to those yet, and they were on my list.
Beautiful. Yeah. No, those are those are huge countries, by the way.
Yeah,
You talk
yeah,
about Russia, you
yeah.
talk about India. It'll take you months and months to get through.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe I'll just go to the main places, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last but not least, I kind of uncover, I mean, like, so you have an extensive portfolio and you're kind of growing and growing. I mean, what is the end there for you, Alfonso? I mean, what is your why and where you want to get to eventually? When will be the day when you're going to say, I'm good, I'm going to stop now? Or is there ever going to be a day?
When they're putting dirt on my coffin, you know what I mean. I don't know. If you're not growing, you're dying. Look at a plant.
Right.
The second the plant stops growing, that's the second it starts dying, right? And so you have to, and it, obviously there's got to be a balance, right? You have to achieve some sort of balance in your life where you can, spend time with your family, of course, and do the things, but also be fulfilled. But this is
Right.
what I understand about life. You have to get uncomfortable. There's comfort zone is one way to start dying, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so the only way to get uncomfortable is to start taking risks. Because if you don't take risks, you can't grow. It's impossible to grow without taking risks, without living outside your comfort zone. And if you can't grow, you can't be fulfilled.
Right.
Fulfillment comes from growth, right? This is why people feel miserable when they're stuck at a job, at a desk for 10 years doing the same thing over and over. You need to grow. If you don't grow, you can't be fulfilled. And if you can't be
Right.
fulfilled, you can't be happy. And if you can't be happy, Ross, what the hell are we doing? Right? Like isn't the objective to be happy? Right?
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
that's the gateway to happiness is being uncomfortable.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. No, we should put that on a quote to my t-shirt and put it back in the market.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, man.
Awesome.
I'll tell you, it's really awesome what you're doing. You have a really great show here,
Thank
really
you.
great content. I'll encourage everyone to follow you, including the people that are watching me. Look, I got I got about 8 people still watching this live.
I appreciate it. No, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's what it is. I mean, similar to you, it's just, you know, I'm trying to just give back to the community. I'm always learning. So when I interview folks like yourself, I'm like the sponge in the room, right?
Yeah.
So why not share the same knowledge that
Yeah.
I've attained tonight with, you know, millions of folks?
Yeah.
And that's the whole idea here. Yeah. So again, Alfonso, I don't want to take too much of your time. I really appreciate you joining me tonight, and I will definitely be in touch, and we'll talk more offline for sure.
Well, like I always tell everybody, Alfonso loves you, and we'll see you at the top.
There you go.